Hello everyone, my name is Jake with No Side Music and welcome to my very first video in my Introduction to Guitar series. Let's begin. So the first thing I'd like to show you is the anatomy of the guitar. I'll show you the anatomy of the acoustic guitar and then I'll show you the anatomy of the electric guitar. Just sort of a brief overview. So we have the bridge here, which suspends the strings. We have the nuts, which suspend the strings. There's a nut on the bridge and there's a nut here at the top of the fretboard. This front part here is called the fretboard or the fingerboard. These metal bars here, the spaces in between them are what we refer to as frets. So we have fret 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I can count. Look at me. Usually there are dots on the 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, and 2 dots on the 12th fret. I would say most guitars do, not all of them though. Back part of this here is called the neck. This big part's called the body. Acoustic guitars are generally hollow. We have a sound hole, pick guard. Up here we have tuning pegs, or they can be referred to as tuning keys. We got the head, the pegs, and then obviously we have the strings. Duh. So this is the acoustic guitar. I will now show you electric. All right, so here we have an electric guitar. There are a few ways that the electric guitar is different than the acoustic. One, the electric part. A lot of acoustic guitars are acoustic electrics, which mean that they can plug into a PA system or an amplifier. Generally speaking, acoustic guitars do not plug in. An electric guitar requires an amplifier, like you'll see sitting behind me, with a power cable. You plug the power cable into the guitar, into the amp, and the guitar will use these electromagnetic pickups or humbuckers to produce sound out of the amp. One thing that I really love about guitars is not all guitars are the same. Some guitars have one pickup or one single coil pickup or 2 humbuckers, or they'll have 5 pickups. They have different sounds, they have different tones. They work for different genres of music. There's different wood types used for acoustic and electric. I'm not going to get into that either today. You'll notice that the pick guard on the electric is a lot bigger than the pick guard on the acoustic. Some electric guitars have pick guards, some don't. Aren't we having fun? So the next thing that we want to pay attention to is how to hold the guitar. I'm just going to use an acoustic guitar for the rest of this video and show you So you'll notice the electric you're generally going to hold with a strap, but I'm not going to bore you with that right now because you've seen that a million times. Notice the curve here in the acoustic guitar. If you are a right-handed player like me, it rests here on your right leg. If you're a shorter person, or if you're a youngster, or you have a youngster, and yes, I'm saying youngster like it's 1853, you want to have some sort of footstool or something to hold your knee up to cradle the guitar. You don't want to do this. I see this all the time where somebody will be looking for something until they do this. And I always tell my beginning students that rather than turning the guitar to you, have good posture and lean over and look at what you're playing. That'll help you out a lot. Posture is very important, so I am going to try and sit up straight. That's not something that I always do perfectly, but it's something to aspire to. It's something to try and implement into your practicing and things like that. Let me tell you about picks. Picks. This is a pick. Duh. I would say it's a little harder than medium. There's different thicknesses of picks, different material picks. They're technically called plectrums. Today, we're just going to call it a pick. There's really technically no right or wrong way to hold a pick. I mean, if you hold it like this, like a cigarette, you're not going to get very far. It's going to be sort of difficult. Or if you hold it with your thumb and your pinky, that's going to be weird. Don't do that, okay? When it comes to picking, which is when you play individual strings one at a time, you want to hold as much of the pick as possible. And of course, I've got the black background and I've got the black pick. And so they're fading into one another, but you can see there, I'm sort of holding it to where you can see just a little bit of the tip of the pick. Let's see, contrast. You can see, there we go. You can see a little bit of the point of the pick there, just sticking out of the side of my finger. And now when I'm picking, I am, so there I kind of adjusted and I'm picking more like this now. So it's almost like this. You'll notice that rather than the myth of everyone thinking they have to pick parallel to the string, I'm sort of picking at an angle. I'm sort of turning I'm kind of going in a rotation, sort of like this. So everybody sort of will form their own style about, you know, if it goes that way, if it goes this way, how many fingers they use to pick. Eddie Van Halen had his way. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, he doesn't use a pick at all, which we'll get into that in a moment. The best way is generally to be really in charge of the pick and not let too much of the pick out. You want to just have it be a precise sort of movement. You can stabilize your hand anywhere on the guitar. If you're playing bigger strings, I tell my students they can place their hand on the bridge. You can also place your hand on the body. If you're playing higher strings, you can lightly place the palm of your right hand or your picking hand on the big strings. So you'll see here I'm resting actually on the big string. When it comes to strumming, it's sort of the opposite of picking, where you sort of want to let the pick, you want to kind of hold the pick hard enough to where you're going to try not to drop it, although unfortunately you will drop it and you will almost always drop it in there. I might do that at the end of this video so you can laugh at me. Here you'll see I'm sort of just letting it flop. I'm assuming that you've never played guitar before or you've only played a few times. That being said, you don't need to do this with any chords or any notes or anything like that. You can either choose to strum these strings open, which means without pressing fingers down, that's open. That's a term we'll use a lot with guitar. Or you can lightly, and I do emphasize lightly because if you press down, you're gonna get weird noises, but if you lightly press down on the strings, just touch your strings right, your fingers right to the strings, you'll get this kind of zippy sound. And that's very helpful for practicing strumming and other rhythm exercises, which we will be doing quite a few of. This is me strumming down lightly. I'm kind of letting the pick pass through the strings, like this. As I'm looking down from the top of the strings, I'm kind of just seeing a jumble of the big string, you know, not really seeing them one at a time like you're seeing them here on this video. So you can pass through the strings lightly like that, sort of Wheel of Fortune. If any of you remember the show Wheel of Fortune, my age is showing. You can also do it fast, and you can do it soft. You can do it hard, and you can go up. And you can do both. I would recommend always practicing this and practice to a metronome. I use the metronome app in the App Store. It's free, Pro Metronome. Muted, it sounds something like this. That's something that you'll be very accustomed to doing eventually. That is picking and strumming as far as the pick is concerned. There will be occasions, and in the styles of music that you want to learn how to play, where you don't use a pick at all, and that's fine. Most beginning students say, I don't want to use a pick because it's new, it's awkward, it's weird, and so I see them do this with their thumb or something like that. And it's not like that's wrong, but it's gonna be very limiting. I would just avoid that. If you're going to pick individual strings, there's a few things you can do. There are finger picks that fit over your fingers for, you know, Chet Atkins style playing, which I cannot. You can go about it if you're playing a chord. You can use one finger at a time. Some 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like this. You can sort of do it that way. Or if you're wanting to just strum, the easiest way to kind of start out is your fingernails are for the down strum and your thumbnail is for the up stroke. So, sort of like that. So it all just depends on the kind of music you're gonna want to play. There's the more traditional, play that. Fingernails are too long, I gotta cut them. Gotta cut my fingernails, can't do it. We'll obviously get more into it in future videos, but for now, that's kind of just the general gist of it. I'm gonna talk about the strings now. Most guitars have 6 strings. Now there are some that have 7, some that have 8, some that have 12, which are kind of a different animal than even the 7 and the 8 string guitar. With some specialized music genres, mostly like progressive metal, I've seen guitars that are 12 strings that have just like 12 individual strings, whereas a traditional 12 string guitar is like a 6 string guitar, but then there is a higher octave for each string or like a double for each string. So a common misconception is that everyone sort of assumes that the 6th string is the 1st string.
Wrong.
The way that I like to help my students remember this is the bigger the string, the bigger the number. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you are playing on a 7-string guitar that has an extra higher string, which is generally the case with 7-string guitars, is the big string is a little more baritone for lower notes, a band like Korn. And then the higher string is, I believe it's usually a B. It's an extra B string or an extra A string for a lot higher pitches. Today, we're going to stick with 6 string and how that applies. The strings are each tuned to an individual note. So we have E, A, D, G, B, and E. There are a few ways you can memorize that. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. Elephants and dogs grow big ears if you're a kiddo. Ignore the last one. I will explain more in detail in future videos why that's so important to memorize, but that is our starting point on the guitar. And it's very important that we memorize that anytime we pick up a guitar, we know what the tuning we are playing in. So this is a chromatic tuner. You'll see I turn it on here and I'm gonna pick a string. And you'll see I'm a little flat. So I'm gonna go here. I guess just a little bit. So the idea is to have it be in the green, or have that arrow be pointing straight up. That's what we want. And we want it to say 440. And we'll talk more about what that means in another video. Another form of tuner is this one here that you see a lot of people use. It attaches to the top of the head of the guitar, and we'll do something like this. It'll pick up the vibration, and then those 2 dots tell us we're good to go. And so on and so forth. You can also tune with a cell phone app. I used to be very much against using cell phone apps to tune guitars, but cell phones have obviously taken over the world. Skynet is going to be active. Cyberdyne is self-aware. That's what I was trying to say. Cell phones are probably fine, as long as it's a good app and the microphone of your phone isn't filled with earwax or poo or something horrific. Another thing I should mention, you want to read on the tuner. You'll see the note of the string will appear. I will do a whole lesson on restringing. And so if you're playing a guitar with strings that need to be changed, I would highly recommend you take it to a music store, a local music store preferably, not a chain music store, and have them change your strings and have them set up your action, the intonation of your guitar, get it really ready to play, and you'll be pouring into your local economy, which is so important. So you'll see here. There we go. So it shows every note. So that's important to know. Action is the distance your strings are from the fret, basically how far you have to push down. That is something you can adjust yourself, but I don't recommend it. I recommend, again, having a professional adjust that for you, because there is a very specific science between where the strings, how high they're suspended here and here, the curvature of your neck, all sorts of things. Very important, very, very important. So I would highly suggest taking your guitar to a professional if it's an older guitar that's in need of some tune-up, or if it's kind of a cheaper guitar. You know, these are things that you want to address. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it amusing. You can subscribe to my channel. You can smash the like button, and please comment if there was something in this video that you wanted to see or you want to know more about. Just let me know, and I will do my very best to address that question in a future video. Like I said, this is my first video, and so I'm still sort of getting used to this YouTube thing. It's been a lot of fun. Again, I'm Jake with No Side Music, and it's been a blast, and I'll see you next time. Just don't do it, okay?